Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Superintendent Funk, for your consideration is renewal of the insurance rates with NJPA Co-op Health Partners. The first graph I just wanted to share with you shows our historical trend with NJPA Co-op. And we've had some years where the premium has gone down, actually. Some years where it was a 0% increase. This year, our premiums are going up by 10% due to, we had a large claim year, high claim year. But if we look at our historical trend, overall, actually we're doing very well on average with our rates. Over the last, 5 years, we have had basically a 4.3% increase average on our health insurance premium. So when you look at the industry trend is substantially higher than that. So this year, we do have a 10% renewal increase, excuse me. The prior year, we'd had a 0% increase. So like I mentioned, we had high claims, and actually, the fact that we're in the pool, NJPA pool, it really, the pooling factor brought our rates down to only, if you want to say only a 10% increase, they would have been double that if we had been standalone. So the pool helped us out big time. So we're at the point here to be able to move ahead to approve these renewals, and upon that, like on the second attachment, Ashley, if you want to pull that up, if you scroll down to the bottom there, it's kind of highlighted, or that's fine too. In addition to these three, these are the three main plans. We also have what's called a like a minimum value plan, which meets the Affordable Care Act regulations. So we do have a few employees that if they reach that 30-hour threshold and they're not in a collective bargaining unit, that we offer that minimum value plan. So on that last attachment, that includes that.
I'm going to put you on the screen and put you over here in the front of the room.
If you want to scroll down.
Yep.
Those are the 4 plans, including the minimum value. So basically, we're at the point then, upon board approval, we'll be sending out information to the staff this week for our open enrollment period if people want to choose a different deductible plan or move from single to family or family to single. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you hear me? So then we'll go through our open enrollment period for any coverage changes for July 1. Any questions? Do you want me to go through that? Okay, what's up on the screen right now, on the far left is the expected claims rates. So that is what they expect for actual claims to come through to be paid. Fixed costs has to do with reinsurance and administrative fees for health partners to be processing our claims. NJPA Co-op does not charge administrative fees for the co-op end of it. Their goal is no profit. Their goal is break even on their costs for the co-op itself. So it's just the health partners administrative fees that reflects the fixed costs there. So then on the far right, that is the rate renewal that's highlighted in yellow.
And that's what you're looking for a motion for?
Right.
Do I have a motion presented?
Someone?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion or questions?
Mark, you getting that?
I am getting it, yes.
Okay.
Any questions or comments, Mark? No. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to our study session. Item 4.1, Area Living Center update. This is Kathy Webar and Tony Crowder.
Now it is.
Okay, so we're here tonight just to talk about the Area Learning Center, what has happened this year, some changes in it, and some thoughts about moving forward. I was the ALC lead during the first semester, and then Tanya has taken over second semester, so we're kind of tag teaming on this presentation. So the first slide is a little bit about the legislation that guides alternative programs, and so we pulled out really some of the significant pieces of it. First of all, students have to qualify to be in an ALC, and they qualify under what's called the graduation incentives criteria, which we'll show you in just a minute. The second piece is that every student has to have an individualized learning plan, and it's called in statute a continual learning plan. And there's been some changes to it in the legislation, which we spent some time on this year updating. The third piece is that we're required by statute to provide information to students and families regarding alternative education options, and that the program is optional. We have some students who want to come to the ALC, and they have to qualify. It's not an open enroll program like other programs. Also, they can't be ordered by a high school principal or assistant principal or someone from another district to attend an ALC. It's an optional voluntary program. A couple of pieces with the programming that's also defined in statute is that it's really a three-pronged program. We must provide academic provisions. We can only offer credits for graduation, nothing more. So if a student hits the 46 credits, that's all they can be offered. We must offer some sort of school-to-work provision, and we must offer some personal support services. So these are the criteria. The first one is where oftentimes many of our students qualify. And because we're an area learning center, we partner with New Richland Heartland, Glenville Emmons, United South Central, and Alden Conger. I said Glenville. So we take students from surrounding districts, and we also have taken about 4 or 5 from Austin recently. And they have an ALC as well. We are an ALC in that we are an individual, we're not a school within a school program. We exist right here at Brookside, and so we're our own entity. We also, because we have a middle school program at Southwest and the high school, we can provide targeted services. So our students have to be eligible. One is that they perform substantially below the performance level for pupils of the same age in a locally determined achievement test. And that criteria is often used for targeted services as opposed to ALC, but we can use that criteria. Is behind in satisfactorily completing coursework, obtaining credits for graduation. And that is probably most often how our ALC students qualify to participate here. For a student to be on track, they need to be completing 11.5 credits a year. And if they're not, then they're not on track, and typically 1 year behind. We don't have very many freshmen. We had one at the beginning of the year who qualified. Obviously, he didn't have any credits for graduation because he was a starting freshman, but he was a parent, so he qualified under another criteria. So typically, we don't have many freshmen here. Some qualify at the end of the first semester. Of course, the student is pregnant or is a parent, and we have about 10 students who qualify. Students who have been assessed as chemically dependent, and typically they're assessed through the county or through a medical facility. They've been excluded or expelled, and typically those are students who can enroll in the ALC, but we also have a program which Mr. Nevins runs, and we do some things jointly with him. Special education students, we are not a level 3 or 4 student program here, so we typically, and Tanya knows much more about level 1 and 2 program as a licensed special ed teacher than I do. They can be referred by a school district for enrollment, and again, they have to qualify. So we have some students we have a student, for instance, who came to us from Rochester, was placed in foster care here, and she had been in an ALC in Rochester, so she was recommended to attend our program. If they've been a victim of physical or sexual abuse, they've experienced mental health issues, They've experienced homelessness, sometimes within 6 months, speak English as a second language or as an English learner, has withdrawn from school, or has been chronically truant. So also that last criteria is often one that our students qualify for. So the mission for the ALC has been around, I think, since it started, well over 20 years, to help students in special circumstances achieve success upon which they can build. When I came in the fall, I wasn't quite sure what that mission meant. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, it was very clear that we needed to define what that mission was. There wasn't a brochure, any programming outlines, anything written down as to how we will operate. So we spent some time as a staff saying, what does that mean for us to help students in special circumstances achieve success? And I had some conversations with Dr. Funk, and basically it seemed to me like we were trying to run a mini high school here without all the supports. And we can have students here up through age 21, and it was just clear that we needed to focus. And our focus, after much discussion, basically came down to if our mission here is to have students graduate with a diploma, then we need to focus on credits. And so everything we did at the ALC needed to be focused on credit attainment towards earning their high school diploma. So having that as our goal, whenever students would come and ask, can we do this? What do you think about this? We would very easily just be able to point to, are you going to get credit for that? In September and October, there were a few programs that had carryover from previous years, and they were great programs, but students weren't getting credit for it. There wasn't any clear criteria how students got to participate. There were some very unhappy students when they didn't get to participate, and so we kind of put all of those activities aside and said the only activities we're going to do here need to focus on credit attainment. And one of the students who was not very happy about that, one of the things we talked about was she wanted to run a food drive, which would be a great, certainly, activity. And she was taking in elective courses. All of our elective courses, for the most part, are online through OdysseyWare. And she was doing a human services unit, and there was a unit prescribed online. And I said, you know what? You do this, this, and this, and then instead of that unit, let's do that local project. And so it made sense. She got credit for it. She got to participate locally. And then she went on, actually, 2 other local projects that she developed, but it was for credit. So everything we do here should focus on credit. So in the fall, when I arrived, Kim Danner and I came over from the high school. We had almost our entire office was new. So we spent some time talking with Dr. Funk about some of the issues that he perceived as some things we should work on, and one was discipline referrals. We took a look at the work of Dr. Ross Green out of Maine. He wrote the book Lost at School. He has a website called livesinthebalance.org. And it's really taking a look at the total student and taking a look at discipline in a different manner, taking a look at it from the standpoint of for instance, if you were going to suspend a student from school, what are the implications of that, especially if we're trying to keep students here, if they're truant, if they have chemical dependency issues, other issues. So we went and looked at Intermediate Districts 287 out of the West Metro. They used a lot of these materials. And Dr. Funk let me not suspend students for much of the first quarter and really work on the school culture and build some trust with students and talk about why they were here. We developed lots of systems. I didn't feel like we were using Synergy effectively here, so we worked with Reed and the folks from Synergy on registration, scheduling, gradebook. We weren't using attendance calling here, the automatic calling. Kim Danner was a rock star when it came to investigating credits and transcripts and really took ownership of developing some systems here that weren't here before. We developed some procedures for intakes and reviewing records. And then towards the end of the first semester, we took some time taking a look at independent study, because that is an option for students here. And since we have students who are past their graduation year, we took a look at what other districts are doing to support those students. And a couple of things that they do is set some very concrete contracts down for students to help guide them in their progress. We also work closely with the county on truancy and placement. Jenna Parlin is a half-time truancy officer with the county, and so we were able to work with her. We also took a look at academic probation contracts for students. What we found is that most students didn't know where they were. How many credits do I need to graduate? So if I come over here and I'm a year or two behind, I can stay till I'm 21, so I can kind of hang out for a while, and it just became, there was no sense of urgency to complete their work. And so we've done a lot of work with the continual learning plan and identifying for students where you need to be to get to that goal of a diploma. And then, because the Department of Ed, their program for alternative programs was being audited this year, all of the alternative programs in the state were asked to hand calculate all of the credits earned for students in ALCs. So down at the bottom, you'll see 2013-14 school year. We had to go through every transcript, and according to a spreadsheet that was sent to us by the Department of Ed for the school year and for summer school, and identify how many students earned credits. And so for 13-14, based on the spreadsheet they sent us, and we combed through every transcript manually, last year, in the school year 2013-14, 250 credits were earned. So using that data and some of the philosophy we were trying to implement here, we started keeping track quarter by quarter. Was what we were doing working? And if our goal was credit attainment, in quarter one, 49.75 credits were earned, and 30 students, and we had about 95 students enroll at the beginning of the year, and we try to maintain around 80 students to maintain about a 15 or 17 to 1 enrollment, which is what the Department of Ed recommends. So we had about 34% of our students earning credits. We then made some changes in the schedule for quarter two. We moved academic advisory to the end of the day, mostly because many students weren't showing up for it at first thing in the morning. And so let's move it to the end of the day, get the students who are on the bus here, right down to work, earning credits. In quarter two, 185 credits were earned, and of course a lot of those were students who were finishing up credits from first quarter. 60 students were earning credits, so 60% of our students were earning credits. So you can see at the end of first semester, just by focusing on the work at hand, we earned almost as many credits as students did the entire year last year. Then quarter three, we went to a modified block schedule, so students can spend a quarter earning a semester credit, so they're in 2 blocks, and they have a choice. And I'm going to turn it over to Tanya, because that's when she took over.
Hello. So I started right at the beginning of quarter three, and that's when the change in schedule went to the block schedule. Again, students in that quarter earned 139 credits. We had 55 students earning that quarter. That increased our percentage of students attaining credit to 79% of our students enrolled during that time. Currently, next week is our mid-quarter week, or this week is our mid-quarter week, excuse me. And so at this mid-quarter point, we're at 65 credits already mid-quarter. So those 2 pieces in the next spot say to be determined. Just looking at the numbers today, I currently have 40 students that are earning credits of that 65.5. So we're looking at about 54%. That's where we're at mid-quarter, but we still have 4.5, 5 weeks yet to go. So we're hopeful that that will be in that quarter 2, quarter 3 percentage by the end. So total so far, we're at 440 credits for this school year in comparison to where we were for a total of 2013, 2014. So setting that goal piece of our mission statement and really having that focus on credit attainment has been a huge impact in what our students are able to do at the ALC. This one is looking at teachers at ALC knew we were coming tonight, and they're excited about the things that are happening at ALC and the things that they're seeing their students do. And so the 3 teachers that are represented up here are language arts, social studies, and special education. And those were teachers that were able to provide some comparison data for me because they were there for the 2013-2014 school year. And so our language arts teacher was sharing that last year she had a completion rate of 45%, and this year she's at 60%. So she's seen a 15% increase. And she was really excited. She said, "Can I share a quote?" And I said, "Yup." And she said that students are reading more and they're inquiring about authors and titles. And she said, "I just feel like this is a great indicator of them being lifelong readers or lifelong learners." And I think that's what we want of all of our students, not just ALC students. Our social studies teacher looked at her credit completion data last year at 58% at this time. She's currently at 72%, and she's very hopeful because she has 36 works in progress. So she's hoping those will be turned in as completed credits in the near future. Special ed looks a little bit different, as you know, because that's so much of an individualized piece. ALC is individualized anyway, but with the special education component, that individual successes are very significant. And so what she wanted to share is that she had one student that nearly doubled his credits this year compared to what he did last year. She had another student who earned 2 credits her entire year last year. This year she's earned 5 with the potential to earn 2 more. A class of 2014 student needed 12.5 credits to start his year for his diploma. He's on track to graduate in June. And then finally we had a special ed student move in the district at age 20 needing to finish, and he already has. So this is looking at our graduation rate trend data. This is specifically off of the Minnesota Department of Education has your data analysis Minnesota report card. This is pulled directly off the Minnesota report card of MDE.
So this is the 4-, 5-, and 6-year trends, which really do apply to ALCs since students can stay until they're 21. So many of them do, but it's I've sat down and tried to analyze how they've come up with those numbers, and it is a little complex, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. And we actually have we had a student this year who really he's 21 during the year, so he could stay, and he did finish. And he's not even in these numbers because he would be a 7-year graduate. So the students do age out at 21. So go ahead here.
This is looking at the graduates that we plan to graduate this year. So as it's labeled class of, those are class of 2015 grads, class of 2014 grads, and so on down, but they'll be graduating in this year. So the number of students that have completed graduation requirements in each of those classes, we currently have 12 students that will be ready to walk on June 4th. The next column is looking at the number of students that are currently eligible. They're the ones that we feel are on track and will likely be ready June 4th. That's an additional 9 students. So our total anticipated graduates for all the classes that are eligible would be 21. Again, the comparison data down at the bottom in italics is 12 graduates for the 2013-2014 school year. So right now we're equal to that with the anticipation of being 9 more.
So in the fall, along with the discussion on what we think the ALC should look like here, we knew that early childhood was up for a big grant, and had they won that grant, we knew that there would be a possibility that ALC might be relocated. So we started having a discussion about what are the advantages of staying here, moving off-site, returning to the high school, what would that look like? And it raised all kinds of discussion items, and some of it was very intriguing. We weighed the pros and cons of possible relocation. And just because we wanted to be prepared, as we knew that that discussion may come to fruition. And then in January, when Jody Farr came in and spoke on poverty at the Poverty Workshop, and we at ALC staff attended with the high school, it really kind of brought the discussion full circle when staff started talking about some of the ideas Jody had. When parents come to school, what do they feel like? How do they feel welcome? And one of the things she talked about, and unfortunately we didn't get to talk to her individually in our group, but when parents come to school and they don't have really good feelings about their education, how does that impact their students? And we talked about that in light of some of our parents who did not have good experience with school and said their students don't have good experience with school, and then they come to us. And so she spent some time talking about change of place and what that looks like. And some of the staff had said, we hadn't thought of it in that light. We hadn't thought of it in the light of what, just physically, what it feels like to be in school for some of our parents. We also talked about the younger population housed here at Brookside. As you know, we share this building with lots of early childhood programming. Many of our students come back from placement. Some do very well when they come back from placement. Some struggle when they come back from placement. We share some of our spaces this year with Adult Basic Ed because they need access to computers. So one of the rooms right in the middle of our area, Adult Basic Ed students use, as do some of their children that they bring with them. The C door in the past, some years it's been locked. It remains unlocked this year because of access to the Well at Work clinic. So there's been some concerns, some security concerns. Our population is 9th grade through age 21, and all of our students who are here are at risk. We have a high percentage of students who are free and reduced lunch, and we have some students who have some serious mental health issues, and they come to school, and sometimes their behavior is inappropriate. And there has been concerns about some of our students' language, even when they play in the gym at lunch, which is great. But expletives here and there are just kind of part of who and what they know. And they oftentimes are confrontational. And although I will say I don't think we've had Officer Herman over here very often this year, we have had a few incidences. We do have students who are chemically dependent. We have students who we suspect are. We have teen parents who access some services here and then access services. The county comes in and provides some services here on site. The Workforce Center comes here and provides some services on site for our young parents. We have active probation officer contact as well as truancy officer contact. So we do have a need for a flexible learning environment. One of the things I asked when I started in the fall is because we have web-based curriculum, our kids have a lot of screen time. And so at lunch, we don't have an open campus, but I said, they need to be outside. They need to see some greenery. And so I stand outside with them at lunch. And then as it got colder, we had some issues with students sneaking out and heading down the hill. And we did have some students go down the D stairwell and were smoking outside of the D door where our early childhood students are. And so I think we have a great student body here, but they all have needs, and they're young adults, and some of them are pushing age 21, and we want to, of course, treat them with respect as young adults, but they do have high needs. One of the things I know is that in a round building, it's hard to supervise. When this was a 6th, 7th grade building, and I was the dean of students, it was hard to supervise, and it still is. You just can't, they're far enough around the corner. And multiple entrances here. Go ahead.
Okay. So these discussions have led to us being able to explore possibilities of the ALC at Riverland Community College here in town. Some of the points that we've been discussing here, and Kathy just alluded to in the previous slide, is that adult role models The presence of adult role models on the RCC campus would be increased compared to what they are here. Again, Brookside is shared with a variety of programs, mainly early childhood programming, and so being able to have some different positive adult role models would be a benefit to our students. Because many of our students are at risk and where they're at in their learning, many of them don't see beyond this program right now at ALC and what they're going to do until hopefully 18, 19, but some of them until they're 21 because they have it in their mind that's where they're going to be. So being in an environment such as RCC would allow our students to see viable options for their future. Will that open up some doors for our students to do post-secondary programming? Being able to utilize that environment to promote post-secondary opportunities would be a benefit to our students in preparing them for post-high school. The Albert Lea Workforce Center would be very accessible in that place or in that location. Currently, we do have some students that work with individuals from the Workforce Center and they come to us, but being able to work more closely with them would be a benefit to being in that space. And increasing our support to meet the school to work requirements. Again, Kathy talked about that in the very first slide, those 3 components of alternative learning programs. School to work requirements is part of that. Did you want to add anything in that one?
I think one of the things, I'm a licensed vocational teacher. I taught business and office for about 8-10 years and was a co-op teacher, and I really was hoping I could implement some of those pieces here. We had Kim Meyer the first month in the fall, and the kids were very excited about having him here. And I know he had talked about, maybe being the one at some point who could help implement that work experience program, because most of our students work. That's what they do. And in the old days, we were able to offer that work experience option for them, and I think that's something that we're missing for these students. And we talk about different programs for kids to build them up, and that's what we really need to do in every class, every hour here is offer them opportunities. And I know last fall, the Pathways Forum, led by Dr. Manny Steele, they talked about ideas to let students know how technical training can offer skills for good life. And I think I see that piece missing here. I know as a licensed secondary vocational teacher, I can teach high school students. I know licensed post-secondary vocational teachers can work not only with post-secondary students, but also with our secondary students. And so I think that's another option that Riverland may offer us by being close, and we might be able to tap into a teacher or two who could offer those opportunities. We took a couple weeks ago, we went up and visited with Eric Van Brocklin, who is the former ALC principal here, and he runs 2 ALCs up in Dakota County, and one is on Dakota County Technical College's physical site. And just kind of brainstormed with him some of the pros and cons of that option, I guess. Do we have another one? So this is the Riverland map, and the kind of the area we're talking about there is if you look up where it says A2, or in student parking, it's kind of that wing, and certainly not all of it, but that is the area. I've been meeting with Matt Bissonette, and that is the area that they feel that they can offer us some space. And they also have some options maybe in their office area where, for instance, the school social worker who comes from the high school would have the opportunity to use some space there. The commons area, which is kind of a cool space. It used to be the library, and they do a lot of advertising of their programming, not only on Albert Lea's campus, but also on their other campuses. That alone, I think, is just to expose our students to what options are available in a certificate program, in a 1-year program, in a 2-year program. Just building hope in our students for life beyond high school, and that the diploma is not only important, but possibly training beyond high school. So that's kind of the area we've been talking with them about.
You mentioned that You've been out there and you've met with Matt. You want to share what happened? You had a staff development day and you went out there with staff, and just general feedback for the board on what your staff thought of the concept.
Sure. So on our staff development day on April 17th, we took the ALC current staff to Riverland to look at the space. We met just right by the front entrance by that student lounge area, met with Matt Bissonette just for a few minutes to talk about the options that would be available for us. He took us on a tour of that 100 wing there down the A2 and just showed each of the classrooms that would be available to our staff. And then I just sat with our staff and met with them. And we just discussed opportunities and how they felt about being in the space. And their feedback was really very positive. Being able to look at, as I mentioned, other students there and feeling that impact of positive role models. They look at the future possibilities of, can we do concurrent elective courses with Riverland, with the high school, the opportunities for students to, again, see that viable option. I think the other piece that comes up regularly too is that the Brookside piece, they often worry about security and our students where they're supposed to be, and we have students going down the D door, and we got a phone call from the district office, and is that your student or is it an ABE student? And so I think sometimes their feeling was that in a different environment that may feel different and look different, this is one short hallway where we have vision from one end of the hallway to the other end of the hallway. So I think they felt that piece was also a benefit to our students and our programs. Yeah, they were very excited about it. They were excited about the opportunities and looking at the different spaces. Went into the computer lab. Our science teacher was interested in the things that were available to him for technology-wise in the computer lab. And we've had conversations with Matt since then about how we can provide those things for our students.
Lori, you want to touch base on what you have found out?
Sure. On the financial end of things, with the lease agreement from Riverland, it's $9 per square foot, 4 classrooms, et cetera, as you see listed here. Total lease cost would be $26,487. Now, the funding stream for this is actually through our levy. The lease levy component would cover the cost, and it would be a very small impact on our overall levy. It would be less than 0.5% of an increase on our grand total levy. So that is the funding stream for that cost of the lease space. And then regarding food service, we have a couple options of how we would provide the food service program to the students in our ALC. Would be through our existing food service application through the National School Nutrition Program through the USDA. We could provide the meals either through vending it out through Cedar Valley Services, who is offering, they currently offer food service for the Riverland students out there. We're researching that option right now. If all else fails, we could also provide the meals through our regular food service program by having the meals prepared at the high school kitchen and then transporting it out to Riverland to be served, basically. Obviously, the most convenient way is if we can work out an agreement with Cedar Valley Services and they would just follow our menu guidelines. But we're researching that now, and we'll probably have an answer in the next couple weeks.
The other situation is we currently don't have a licensed principal with the ALC because we've got myself, we've got some directors here at Brookside. So when somebody does something naughty or something bad happens, they will contact us and we're able to run upstairs and help out. By moving it off campus, we would need to have an assistant principal, somebody licensed out there for the students. So that is a cost. But you want to talk through that, Lori?
Okay. The pay difference between having an assistant principal of the ALC to a teacher on special assignment would be, as far as total package salary and benefits, would be an increase of $25,000. How we would pay for that is, traditionally we've had half of that position charged to what's called compensatory funding. And so we do have an increase in compensatory funding for the ALC next year of $28,000. So, you know, half of the $25,000 increase of the salary and benefits would come from the compensatory funding piece. The other piece would come from the so-called profits, if you will, from the targeted services program. So in the reserve for ALC, we have the ALC program that's housed here at Brookside, the ALC at Southwest, and then the targeted services program. All those programs are in the reserve for ALC. And traditionally, it's the profits from the targeted services program help offset maybe losses if we are running a loss in the ALC component. So I'm confident we're going to cover that cost of putting it as an assistant principal classification in the ALC. Any other questions on that?
Now, I had received feedback from at least one board member earlier that you know, we have a high school transitions program currently at Riverland that currently serves 6 students in the afternoons. Kathy, you met with Matt. You want to give us an update on where that's at?
Sure. When we first met, we talked with him about you know, what our needs were, and I knew that we had a transitions program out there. I didn't know much about it, and I said, you know, is it possible that there's a dedicated classroom that they use that we could share part of the day? And he said, of course, because it's not used by anybody else in the morning. We also talked about, you know, what were the uses classroom-wise? Did they need any special equipment? And so when they showed us the room, it was basically a regular classroom without any special equipment in it. We took a look at their schedule. I believe they use the classroom from 12:30 to 3:30 or 2:30, and depending on which rooms we lease at the ALC, there'd be the opportunity to share those spaces with the transition program, of course. We've also explored that with Sarah Kleckel that possibly some of our current students at the ALC might benefit from some of that instruction as well. Right now we have one student who is assigned at the ALC in the morning and to attend the program in the afternoon. So I think that certainly would be a great joint opportunity to explore. I know that the program, unfortunately, because of HVAC out at Riverland, will be coming here to Brookside for a couple weeks. So I think the good thing about that is the opportunity to talk with that teacher and watch those students while they're right here and how they would fit in with ALC programming at Riverland. So
yeah, they're starting a HVAC project at Riverland sometime in the next week or two. So they're having us vacate that program here for the last few weeks of the school year.
yeah.
But they said that if we want to do this, they would be ready for us in the fall if the board were interested in executing this concept that they've done a great job presenting. So questions from the board? Mark, I don't know if you're still here with us.
Yes, he's there. It is. So in the elementary for targeted services, they take a look at their FAST scores and their MCA scores. We don't use that so much as the ALC, but what we do look at is if they're a year behind in credits, it's very difficult to get caught up at the high school. So about 11 and a half credits behind, because we require 46 credits for graduation. If they're 11 and a half credits behind, oftentimes the high school will recommend them to ALC. Not every student comes. We have many students at the high school who are, as juniors, 11, 12 credits behind, and they choose not to come to the ALC. So they have the option to do credit recovery after school, and they have the option to do credit recovery in the summer through the ALC. And we don't have the total figures for after school. I know as of March, we only had 13 students earning credit after school. We have students typically several hundred over the summer, but they can only earn 2 credits in the summer. We're going to try something new this year. We have a couple of students who are not behind, and typically you cannot do credit recovery unless you fail. So there has to be an F on your transcript, or we can't collect revenue for you. So we're going to try with a couple of our ALC students who are not on track yet. So they're going into their senior year, and they don't have all their junior credits finished. So they are going to do an independent study option over the course of 6 weeks, so the full 91-hour course, essentially. So we're going to give that a try. And these students who were not game for it at the beginning of the year are game for it now, which is really exciting. So we're looking at some other options for those students. So 11.5 credits a year gets 46 at the end of their senior year. So that's when they're behind.
Okay, thanks. And my comment is, I think this is excellent work. To me, it goes back to a lot of times during the calendar discussion, I kept hearing, why don't we try some different things in our current calendar? So this is some forward-thinking, changing a venue, trying to surround students at risk with adults, trying to get a different outcome than we've been getting. So this, to me, is exactly what we should be doing. It's a small number of students, and I did get some criticism that, look what you're doing for 12 students, but that goes back to our discussions. Every student, we're responsible for each and every student. And so, yes, it's a small number, but these are the students that need us the most. So I applaud you for this work.
I think as I look at these students, and you don't know what you don't know until I've been in the district 29 years, and coming to the ALC this fall was an eye-opener for me as well, as a vocational teacher for 10 years. It's one of the things I struggled with. I think I ran out into the parking lot one day, and Dr. Funk almost ran me over because I said, there's no urgency here, and these kids, we need these young men and women. We need them in society, we need them as employees, we need them as part of who we are, and we're not there yet, and this isn't a panacea for all of them, but I think just to give them hope that employment long-term is within their reach, and the diploma is just a stepping stone to getting there. So.
A couple of questions.
Sure.
As you've researched it and then visited some other places and talked to Eric Van Brocklin, what are some of the challenges that they said in being
Sure.
co-located at the community college site?
So at Dakota County, they are an open campus, so kids can come and go, and they go at lunch, and they often don't come back. That definitely is a challenge, he says. They have only about 5 students who take the school lunch. Many of the rest of them just have lunch there. I think the other challenge, which he has his own career and technical ed teachers who teach some of his students, and those of you who know Eric, he's always looking for a way to kind of find a way in to do something different and better, and it's kind of our role model in that way. But he said, you have to kind of feel out what's there. He said, you aren't going to get everything you want year one, but he says, you'll see something happen, and you just kind of have to pounce on that teacher or that staff member at the technical college and try to take advantage of that for it. Sometimes it's only one student who can benefit by doing something different, but he said it's better than having them drop out of school and being that other statistic. So, and he serves about the same number of students there that we serve here. So
His biggest thing when we visited with him too with that was just, you have to try it. You don't know if you don't try, and you have to open up those opportunities for students. And like Kathy said, even if it's only one, if you didn't try it, you don't know. And then you close that door on that student when you could have opened it and provided another opportunity. So just one makes a difference.
About another question that I had was, have we asked students through just informal conversations or survey what do they think about this idea?
We haven't formally opened it up to students yet. It's been a staff discussion currently. As with anything that's happening, in fact, a parent came in my office today and said, well, how come this hasn't leaked out? I heard you're moving. And I said, we're not moving. It's in discussion. You know, nothing's signed, sealed, and delivered. It's just discussion. And she had some questions and comments and how will busing work? Busing would still be there. Well, what about lunch? Lunch would still be there. Well, how are they going to do this credit? Elective credits will still be there. So we haven't formally opened it up to students and interviewed or surveyed them per se. But
They thought it'd be a good idea to talk to you before they talk to the
yeah,
students.
we're trying to follow the chain. Yeah.
I would say we did have, in the fall, when we talked about Mr. Meyer and some of the opportunities he might bring, there were a lot of students who were very sad when he wasn't a part of our program anymore. And we talked about the work program, and they'd come in and they'd say, have you hired somebody yet to be our work program person? What are you doing yet to get us on the job? And so I think they want that opportunity. And when I left, that was one of the things I said, is we're going to continue to explore opportunities for you, because that's why we're here. So.
And we still have those questions from students and from parents. Like, where is that going? What opportunities are there going to be in the future? That's ongoing.
And the downside to the work program piece is colleges aren't turning out graduates with that licensure. And so schools find it very difficult to hire people with that licensure. Our high school person who has the licensures for work experience handicap, she was employed by the district and went back and got that as she went to school. You really have to kind of build it from within, and I think that's a perfect model for looking at Riverland. What can we build from within, from what we have here? Maybe there's someone out there who's a 8/10 teacher and is interested in doing blah, blah, blah. And on Friday, they don't have class, and so they've said, you know, if that's a day that you have somebody who you want to use our shops or you want to do something different, that's another opportunity we could possibly take advantage of.
Then just one other thing, and I just wanted to share this as a comment. I certainly don't think it's a disconnect on the district level, but I had a couple of I was a Riverland employee, and a couple of former colleagues said they haven't been shared information out there, and they're feeling out of a communication loop at Riverland. And so if you maybe want to share that with the Riverland
Yeah, we could do that. And again, I think we have been, you know, I think that we have met with Riverland a few times on this, and they've met more than I have, and had discussions, and we didn't want to be, until we felt comfortable enough and looked at enough of the pieces to bring it to the board from our end. And so, but I can share that with them. Yep.
So if our students were at Riverland, it would be closed campus still? Mm-hmm. And does the busing issue have any increased cost to the district?
No. Right now, we are the last pickup on the line, or the last drop off in the morning. So the high school starts at 8? 8. Wednesdays we start at 20. Yes. And so the bus comes from the high school here. Our kids can have breakfast, and then we start at 8:15. We have a very tight 6-hour day here. There's no passing time, so we do a full 6 hours of instructional time. Our day ends at 2:36, and then our kids load the bus out here, and they head to the high school for a 2:50 departure. So, yeah. And so, you know, that actually would be a closer time. We do share some traveling teachers right now, a math teacher, a school social worker, art, Fayed. So.
Yeah. Thank you. I can see a lot of benefits in moving this population to the Riverland Community Campus, just having those positive role models and showing that vision for what they could achieve after graduating. So thank you.
Yeah.
No questions, but I applaud you. Thank you for your fabulous presentation. I mean, this is great information that I'm excited to see where this goes. Thank you.
I've just got one question with regards to future space needs out at Riverland. Was there any discussions with regards to, as they grow, you know, how this is going to impact us?
Not really. You know, I think they're, like everyone else, you wait to see what your enrollment looks like. And I know that I sit on the Perkins committee I represent Albert Lee as part of our consortium with Austin and Owatonna and then 5 smaller schools. And one of the things we talk about is what can we do consortium-wide. As a matter of fact, we kind of got dinged on our monitoring from MDE on this. And so, but Riverland, you know, has said because the economy is good, their enrollment is dropping. And I think that was on the news the other night as well. So, you know, I think our students, and we're not saying that that's where they're going to end up or that's what they're going to go, but I think it would give them an opportunity to tap into a resource of high school students and past grads. I think, you know, thinking of our students who go to age 21 and to treat them respectfully as young adults, that this is an opportunity to explore a career. We have our first student who is doing a post-secondary course this term through the ALC. She's on track, and so she's in a CNA course, and I think part of that was also because the high school had the CNA course, and so, you know, kind of just partnering with those expectations both at the high school and Riverland. I know that they, like everybody else, want some worry about the number of students they have, so I don't know much other than that.
And then one last question. When is your grad ceremonies this year? June 4th?
June 4th at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Exceptionally well put together presentation. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.
So we will move forward then with the contract development for Riverland, and then we'll bring it to you for the contract approval here at a future meeting in the next couple
I'm
meetings.
seeing a collective nod, yes.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to item 4.2, the Chromebook update. Mr. Querim and Griswold.
Yeah, I'd just like to reintroduce Kenneth Griswold. He's our coordinator of technology integration for the district. He presented to you last year. It's been almost a year now. And, you know, as you know, one of the things we've been working on for those who have been around for a little bit for the last 5 years is building a technology that is not only work but accessible for people and for students, for staff, for us as the working, the people that work in the district as far as increasing efficiency and becoming more effective at what we do. But Kenneth focuses a lot on what goes on in the classroom and how technology can be used in the classroom. And that, after building a network that we think is extremely reliable and continuing to update that, a logical move in this progression of sort of a very measured approach of increasing technology in the district is to get it in the hands of students and teachers and have them feel comfortable and use it there to increase achievement. So Kenneth is going to kind of take you back to where we were last year, I suppose, and how we're going to move forward, particularly with Chromebooks.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so just a quick slide. This is sort of at the center of what I believe about technology integration is that effective technology integration can bring learning into focus, particularly around, oh, thank you.
Thought our technology was working again there for a minute.
Yeah, so critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, these are 4 C's that are part of 21st century skills. But I think what I like about thinking about learning in this way is that these are deeply embedded skills across many disciplines and across all of the things that we teach and do, and that we also see when we look at the world of communications technology that is shaping the way that we live and work and interact. These are the areas where we really see the value of that technology. So thinking about these things, this is an opportunity, a nexus where we can bring together the best of what technology can offer with the best that we know about student learning. So some of the challenges, though, to effective technology integration, we talked about this last June, but I just wanted to highlight these quickly, is that our current lab-based model means that technology students having their hands on technology on the computer is an occasional experience rather than one that's integrated daily into their learning experience. So that's a challenge to achieve what we'd like to. And then also we have issues, or we suspect we have issues with equity of access, where we have some students who have, 24/7 access to digital resources and tools, and others that don't, that have none outside of school. And so that's a challenge for us. How do we improve access for all students to achieve equity? And then a third is, how do we take advantage of what technology can offer to provide more effective professional development? That's a challenge for us as well. So when we think about mobile learning, one-to-one computing initiatives, which is what we're sort of exploring here, started with that last year. What research has showed us is that when effectively integrated with teaching and learning, it can improve student achievement and produce other improved outcomes for students. And one thing we looked at together last year was the Project RED, which is a large-scale national study looking at one-to-one implementations in schools across the country in a variety of wide range of socioeconomic communities, diverse communities, urban, rural, across the country, and looking for commonalities about what really works. So there's some lessons to be learned from that, but the bottom line is that it really can improve outcomes when done effectively. We've also seen an increased adoption of mobile computing models in the state and in the region, and successful mobile learning here in our own district. We just had a presentation from ALC. This is their third school year using Chromebooks to support their online learning highly successfully, and they've used those very well and integrated those programs through year by year, increased what they're doing with that. And then also with our K-1 iPods and our second grade iPads, one-to-one iPads. We've seen, just over the course of my arrival here last December, a year ago December, working with those second grade teachers, we've seen really, really innovative things happening at that level, especially where the students have their own device that they can access every day, all day in class. We've really seen some fantastic strides in what they're able to do. And I'd be happy to share some of those with you if we have time. And then the standards that we have integrate technology and media skills throughout, particularly in English language arts. Literacy standards in all the way through, they're heavily integrated. And then we have the opportunity to take advantage of increased access to high-quality digital learning resources aligned to our standards. So these are all opportunities that we look to take advantage of when we increase access through mobile learning. So the core goal that I think we're adopting for this is a student-centered learning environment where opportunities for learning and access to educational resources are available anytime and anywhere. The idea that we can increase access to high-quality learning experiences for all students. And then the additional things that I'm not going to read through all of these, but equity of access, inquiry-driven project-based learning, targeted interventions, engagement, motivation of students of their own learning, formative assessment, opportunities for communication and collaboration, and then the ability to create authentic work for authentic audiences through online publishing and other opportunities. So what we've taken so far, that's what we presented in a nutshell. That's what we presented last June, and we decided to move forward and to start with a pilot this year, and I'm going to be reporting on that. And so here's some of the steps that we've taken so far to try to move in that direction. We've started a pilot with Chromebooks in grades 6 and 7 and 8, and we added one elementary this spring, so we'll give you a little more information on that. But now we've got Chromebooks in every social studies classroom in grades 6 and 7, and then the English language arts classrooms in age 8 at the high school. We also modified and developed a building tech integration coaching program so that now every building and program has technology integration coaches. These are full-time teachers that earn a stipend to provide regular targeted staff development to teachers to support technology integration in the classroom. And we also launched Google Apps for Education, which is a free suite of applications that dramatically improves what we're able to do in terms of collaboration and communication as a staff. And we've seen a tremendous adoption of that this year. I think we've seen a wide range of uses across every building, especially among staff. They're using it in PLCs to manage and do collaborative planning. They're using it to help facilitate student conferences with parents. They're using it to schedule labs, to schedule resources in the building, to share events, to flip staff development, to develop websites, to manage the ATPPS process. I could go on and on. We've seen a really, really swift uptake of these tools, and so I think that's a testament to how simple and easy to use they are, and also how effective they are at adding something that we didn't have before. We wouldn't see this tremendous adoption rate if it wasn't a big improvement on what we had before. So I think that's a good sign for us with Google Apps. And then we developed the Mobile Learning Initiative research team made up of Jim and myself and Mary Williams and Steve Kovach and Mark Gross-Klaus, and then Andrew Gustafson, who's a building tech coach at the middle school and a math teacher, and Jane Butte, media specialist at the high school. So that was the core team we developed to start doing some research starting in January, and we really looked closely at some of the research together about what's effective for implementation for mobile learning, and then we did 2 site visits, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then planning for digital transition. So in the curriculum adoption that's happening this year in math, a big focus of that has been, okay, so if we are able to increase access on mobile devices and we move in this direction at all levels, what kinds of questions does that raise in terms of how do we choose a curricula that is appropriately suited for that kind of environment and that's flexible enough to be used across the kinds of hybrid environments that we might see. So that's starting to inform our decision-making there. So report on the pilot, the Chrome pilot, which we started in October. Our devices were a little bit back-ordered, so we didn't get them out into the carts and into the teachers' hands until October. But we have 4 social studies classrooms at the middle school and 2 English teachers at the high school. And then we had an opportunity at a dramatically reduced cost to add an additional cart. And so we placed that at Lakeview Elementary in grade 4 as an opportunity to explore what this might look like at an elementary level.
You just didn't place it. Why don't you tell them how you chose Lakeview?
Yeah, okay, I'll certainly tell you. So what we did is we presented to the principals and to the building and to the district technology committee, said what the goals for the program were. We wanted to, just like at our middle school and high school, wanted a real focus on writing and on digital literacy. We were going to be using Google Apps, and we wanted to evaluate, how this was a fit for the curriculum. And then we created an application with a series of questions related to those goals. And then principals were able to work with teachers in their building to apply. They applied and answered those questions. Then we had a team, our team sat down and looked through the applications and said which applications show the most promise. We had actually 3, one application, one elementary declined to apply, and we had good applications from the other 3. But the application from the 4th grade teachers at Lakeview sort of rose to the top. So that's the reason we placed it there. Focus continues to be writing and research skills, increased collaboration and communication, but the devices are in the classroom, and so we've also seen innovative things happening with formative assessment using digital tools and online discussion and using video and other things as well, kind of pushing into the content area as well. So in social studies and English both doing more than just writing and research. And then staff development for the pilot, we had 2 training days in the fall, and 1 training day with the group at Lakeview in the spring. And we have an online community that all the pilot teachers are a part of, where they can share resources, post questions, respond to each other, and get support from myself and from the coaches. I've pushed into PLC meetings at both at the middle school and at the Lakeview Elementary. And also our building tech coaches have been really helpful, especially at the middle school. Andrew Gustafson has stepped in and really provided a lot of hands-on coaching for that team there, pilot team. So some of the successes we've seen an increased use of digital learning resources. We've seen the ability for teachers to provide more timely feedback on student writing in the form of comments right within their papers as they're writing, and then providing quick feedback on writing for students as they revise. I've seen an increase in online discussion, especially in the English classes at the high school. Erin Miller has been using online discussion really well to support what she's doing with her literature studies. And we've seen the use of digital formative assessment. So social studies teachers in 7th grade at the middle school have developed a number of assessment tools using Google Forms and Google Sheets that provide automatic grading so they can immediately give feedback and then analyze that data at their next PLC meeting. So they've been able to use that effectively. We're seeing more frequent opportunities for student research because they've got devices right there that they can use for that purpose, and also writing tasks. And then the Chromebook, I think, has really lived up to our expectations in terms of being a device that works very well. It's very easy to use. It's sort of the device moves to the background because it's a 9 seconds or less to boot up from off to on and ready to go. It works very well as a shared use setting. So the fact that we have carts where we have different students using the device every period, that's worked seamlessly. So it's met every expectation for us. We had 1 or 2 little technical bobbles during the year that we had to work through, especially early. But overall, that's been pretty seamless. So we've been pleased with that. Challenges. Mid-semester launch was a challenge. Teachers, especially, they didn't get their devices much ahead of time. I think it was maybe a week ahead of time before when we gave the teacher the device and had our first training to when they launched them in the classroom. And they wanted to get them out as soon as possible. But I think also the fact, once the fact that it was new to them, and then they had them in the students' hands, and they were trying to teach the students how to sign on, but they really hadn't had their hands on the devices for long, and that kind of thing. Especially at the middle school, I think they struggled for a little while to kind of get it under their feet, a few weeks. So that was a challenge. Digital learning environment. How do you handle assignments and tracking student work and providing feedback and managing the different files that the students are creating and turning in, and that was kind of a challenge. Even though it was a focus of our training, working through it and kind of learning how to do it and what works best for a particular class was kind of a challenge. Current curricula that we have is not always digital ready. So the writing curriculum, for example, is a good curriculum we have, which benchmark based writing curriculum, and it's good in the fact that they provide all of the checklists and rubrics and worksheets and graphic organizers and the whole 9 yards that the teachers use with their students during a writing workshop. But that's paper pencil, and if you're trying to then adapt those materials to be used in a digital environment where you can take advantage of all the collaborative tools, you almost have to recreate some of that stuff. And so that's been a challenge. And I think that's going to be the story of this whole process as we move to a digital transition, is reevaluating the materials that we have and what kinds of changes need to take place and giving people the time to develop those things. It's going to be a progressive process. Varying levels of readiness was a challenge. Students, I think, picked it up pretty quickly. from what teachers have told me, both at middle school and high school. But then we have some teachers that were, ready to go, and others that they've had to really had support from their colleagues to kind of catch up. But I think that's great, especially at the middle school. The teachers have worked really well together to support each other in that. So, and then they've asked for help when they need it. So that's been good. One other challenge is that one teacher at the high school talks about, because of the materials and the demands of the curriculum, at the high school it's a little different because there are 2 English teachers that have the devices and a department of English teachers that don't. And so having their voice heard at PLC about some of the room to kind of innovate and move in a digital direction, they're still negotiating some of those things. What can we change? What can't we? What can we do? What can't we? And trying to figure that out. So that's one challenge that we've dealt with. And that's where I talk about making room for innovation. I'd like to see us be more formal about that, about providing permission to those teachers to kind of really innovate and push the limits and see where they can go with things with this. So that's one goal for me, learn this year for next year, is to really work to provide the flexibility in those structures to allow them the room to innovate. That's their role as pilot teachers in my mind. And then another concern that's been raised is that sometimes the students with special needs, ELL students in the classroom and so on, the support services and such and structures that we have in place for those students sometimes aren't as receptive to moving in a digital direction. And so we need to think more clearly about how do we provide support so that all those structures can adapt as well. Then we had the mobile learning research team. We did 2 site visits. New Prague has a 1-to-1 Chromebook program in grades 9 through 12. They're in year 1 of a 3-year plan that they've developed. And by the end of year 3, they'll be 1-to-1 grades 6 through 12, and then they'll have CARTs, 1 per grade level, in grades 3 through 5, and then they're also going to have devices. They currently don't have devices like we do at K2, but they're going to be adding. They're not sure. That's the last tier of their plan, and they're still working that part out. So we did. I actually got to visit twice. The team visited once. I got to visit twice. We saw classrooms. We talked to the team. One thing that came away from that, one takeaway from that, is that when we were in the meeting, the entire leadership team from district level to the building level to the some of the teachers that were in that meeting all came to that meeting to meet with us, and all were able to talk at great length about the plan, its vision, how it worked. And so the fact that you had a team level, district-wide, building level team that had a shared vision and leadership was really critical to their success. So that was a real takeaway. Another is that they provided their devices to teachers the year before. They rolled out to students, which they counted as a real benefit for their plan. And then the takeaway from both visits was this need to establish a comprehensive action plan that doesn't just look at devices or funding, but those pieces in addition to the whole range of pieces was important, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Mounds View is a little bit different. They're in their first year of a 3-year rollout. They're doing a phased rollout in grades 3 through 12 at all buildings. And they're going with CARTs in academic core classrooms. And so it was a good contrast for us to see that and to talk through that. Same kinds of themes came up, different solutions to the same problems, or same questions, answers to the same questions. But we saw really interesting things in both buildings. I think in classrooms in both schools. I think we also saw some sort of first year, slow out of the gate kinds of changes too. I mean, it's one of those things we saw, and I think we're going to see that as we go forward, is that we're going to see a lot of real innovation in areas and then some slower progress in others. And what do we do to try to do that? And in both schools, they had plans in place to really try to, allow people to move ahead, but then also to support those that were kind of behind and kind of make sure that they we're catching up and taking advantage of all of that. So the comprehensive action plans, these are the components that both schools really took a look at. Vision and leadership, establishing a culture at the school that's supportive of your goals, funding and sustainability, creating a plan that's sustainable. It's not a one-time, we're going to do this, and then 4 years down the road, what are we going to do? When these devices are out of date and have no funding. So coming up with a sustainable approach. Learning approach. So you can't just put the device out there and then leave all the other structures in place, content, curriculum, and so on. It won't work. So you have to really think about what are we doing, be very deliberate about what are we doing in terms of our learning approach. Professional development is a key part of that, and as well as the technology, and then of course the community. How do you make this program a part of the community and what the community knows about and asks about and is able to participate in, and how do you address concerns related to access out in the community? And so we've seen a lot of really innovative answers to that question and very different. So at New Prague, where there are one-to-one take-home at the high school, students take their devices home every day. At Mounds View, they're cart-based, so obviously students aren't taking their devices home, but they still have successful flipped classroom initiatives, and they talked through how they've developed that and been able to help provide access to students outside of class. And then also they've been very creative about their schedule, so both before and after school, they extend hours for students to be able to have access in the buildings, and they run 2 busing schedules, for example, a late bus schedule and things like that. So it's about different solutions to the same kinds of concerns, but these are the concerns we will need wanting to address. So our next steps, we wanted to extend our pilot into 2015-16. Current pilot, going to have those teachers keep their devices, and then now that they'll have the time and a year's reflection to really plan for what they can do next year and really develop and develop what they're doing. We'll expand the pilot. We're going to add 2 shared Chromebook carts at Southwest and 2 at the high school, so that now other teachers will be able to check out carts. We actually saw a lot of demand, particularly at the middle school, where people would come, even though we said, we were very deliberate about telling the teachers, these carts belong in your classroom, we want you to be using them, and because we really want to get a good pilot. We had a lot of knocking at the door, hey, can we borrow your cart for this and do this? And we made some room for that, because, we said, well, I was nervous about that. I was like, I really want to keep them in the classroom, but it's good that we have this demand. It shows that people are really interested in this project. So this is the opportunity to really capitalize on that by expanding the carts. And then third, this is the big key thing for me, and I think now that we want to capitalize on our success with Google Apps this year. The really great things we saw at Mounds View, where their entire PLC process is done online now using Google Sites and Google Classroom and Google Apps for Education to support a highly collaborative environment with their PLCs. We want to capitalize on that, and we also want to capitalize on what we learned from New Prague, where they gave their devices to teachers a year in advance of increasing student access. By providing all licensed staff with a Chromebook next year. Right now, we currently have a teaching model where we have desktops in the classrooms, and then at the high school, we have, a separate area where they can work. But in terms of, and we provide access through our HDPPS Commander and some other tools where teachers can work on their own devices at home. But having a mobile device in their hand that they can carry to a PLC meeting, every room becomes a lab where they can collaborate, where they can share real-time data, they can manipulate the data. I think we're going to see dramatic dividends from that. And I can speak to that personally. Before coming here, I worked as an instructional technology specialist for another district that was one-to-one MacBooks for 3 years. And the one thing they did in the first year was give all licensed staff MacBooks in advance of the students. And by the end of really by the end of the year two, but certainly by year 3, that was really a core component component of their success. We had over 100 teachers in the summer working to develop curriculum as part of a huge team, and it wouldn't have worked without everybody having a device and being able to collaborate and submit and give comment on each other's work and so on and so forth. And we weren't even using Google Apps, which I think if we had been doing that, we would have been even further ahead of the game. Anyway, so I think that's going to be a real value. We want to take what we've learned with our mobile learning research team and kind of expand that team to develop a comprehensive action plan. We want more input we would like to have input from some people, from more teachers, from some student input, some parent input, some community input to help develop a plan that's more comprehensive. And part of that too, we want to do a better job of surveying our community, teachers, students, and parents to really get a sense of baseline, where are we in terms of classroom use, in terms of our access both at school and at home and the reliability of that access, in terms of this kinds of skills, digital skills, literacy skills that we want to develop. Where are we now? If that's what we say we want to develop, where are we now? And then what about our environment, both in school and outside? And so there's a tool called Clarity from Bright Bytes, which is used by I think 60 plus districts now in the state of Minnesota for this to answer these kinds of questions, and is really well reviewed, highly reviewed. And so we're going to take advantage of that. We're just working on that, and we're going to try to do a collection this spring yet, and then do another collection next year, and then kind of compare, and then the following year as well, so we can kind of track our progress, both in pilot classrooms and without. What is this looking like? We want to refine our coaching model. Some of the things we learned this year is that it's tough for full-time teachers to be able to provide coaching sometimes when it's needed most. And so what can we do to refine that model or explore other opportunities within that model to grow even more, to provide those needs. And then we're going to complete our wireless network upgrade at Southwest and the high school. So I already talked about these, so I won't read them, but these are some of the reasons why I think giving licensed staff a device is a good decision. But I'd be happy to answer questions about that and come back here if I need to. So what might it look like in terms of a 4-year plan? This is kind of what I did last year, and it's been, based on all we've learned, it's changed a pretty good bit. So I wanted to go through this quickly. So this that you're going to see here is saying that by the end, this is based on a lot of assumptions that the action team will ultimately have planning team will have a lot to say about. But based on what we know now, by the end of 2018-19, we would have Chromebooks. This would be this coming year, Chromebooks for all staff, licensed staff. Then we'd provide a refresh of our current Apple device program in K2, except based on some feedback I've gotten from those K1 teachers, and looking at the budget and looking at all the scenarios and what we've learned from the more successful, I think more successful second grade one-to-one program with iPads, we're looking to probably replace the iPod Touches with iPad Minis, so it's a little bit more capable device. In K and 1, where they can do a little bit more of the kinds of things that they're doing in grade 2, where students are really creating digital products that really showcase their learning. That's hard to do on an iPod. You can do a lot of skill practice, but you can't do a lot beyond that. So that's one of the things we're looking at. So we'd refresh that. And then grades 3 through 5, we're still that's why we've got that pilot at Lakeview. We're wanting to see, hey, is this the right fit for that age group? But assuming that it works well, and our 4th grade teachers at Lakeview are so far very highly enthusiastic about what they're doing, we'd like to see 1 cart per grade level, or this assumes 1 cart per grade level in grades 3 through 5, a cart of 30 devices shared among 3 sections, or 40 devices shared among 4 sections, so 10 devices per classroom basically. And then grades 6, 7, and this is where, this is some assumptions built in here based on what feedback from the administrators that were part of our team, and the teachers that were part of our team visiting both Mounds View and New Prague. But best guess right now, if they had to decide today what they'd recommend, I think they'd recommend staying cart-based in grades 6, 7 in academic core classrooms, and then possibly doing a take-home 1-to-1 where students take home devices in grades 8 through 12. So that's what this 4-year scenario looks like. So year 0 would be this coming school year. I say it's year 0 because this is where we add devices for teachers, but we're still continuing in pilot mode with students. We're not sort of pushing into all parts of the plan there. So year 0, this would be costs there. Year 1, you can see at the bottom there, that's the total costs, this includes the Apple refresh, this includes the network upgrade at Southwest in the middle school. This includes some budget for professional development and some for repair and replace. But these are pretty close to accurate numbers when it comes to looking at the device costs. So one thing you may notice, you may remember that we paid $272, including the management license for the Chromebooks we purchased this year, for this school year. Already the price for a comparable device is dropped, and now we'd be paying $227 per device. So that's a significant, I mean, we're seeing good savings there and good value, I think, for these devices.
Go back.
Yep.
Talk about E-rate in year 0.
Yep, E-rate. Yep. So E-rate there's been some changes to E-rate. E-rate is a federal program that I'm sure you're familiar with, but it's used to fund. In years past, it's been used to fund like our phone communication system, our hardwired network, fiber, and so on and so forth. Well, there's some changes to E-rate for this year where there's this, what is it, level 2 or class 2? Can you speak to this?
Category 2.
Category 2?
Yeah.
You can speak to it a little bit more.
So basically, what's happened is E-rate funding is now becoming available for things like the wireless network, the APs, the controllers for that. Those things were not eligible for E-rate before. And one of the benefits that we would have, being in the sort of economic condition we are as a community, is it makes us eligible for 80% of those things that, if we were to add them, would be E-rate eligible, and that's a significant dollar amount in year 1. You can realize it one time, so when we do those updates, we can do that. We'll know in September if that happens or not. Right now, I think it looks pretty good by all indications that that could happen, and that would be a significant savings to the district.
So you'd be purchasing your wireless upgrade through E-rate?
Yes.
Or E-rate would be the funding source?
For almost the majority of it, yep.
Yeah, if you look at that line there, if you look at the line, it's $219,797. That's the plan we submitted to E-rate. And if you were funded at 85 or 80%, I think that's like I've got that figure somewhere, but it's 175,000, something like that, is 80%. Pretty close to that. Would be funded through this program. That'd be so that's a significant opportunity. And yeah, Reed, who's been closely tracking this for us, says that everything he's reading is that we have a really good chance of getting funded this year. So we didn't know that in the winter, earlier in the winter, but everything we've heard so far.
And within your plan, if you don't get the E-rate, what's
still fully funded? Still can be fully funded with capital funds, even if we don't.
Okay.
Get E-rate.
You'll get to that in a slide or two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So I wanted to talk briefly about the device. We ordered an Acer Chromebook last year. This was the one that I'm recommending for this year. This is one developed specifically for the education market. It has a number of advantages, particularly since we're giving these to teachers. They're not going to be housed on carts. This is a more durable device. It's drop resistant, reinforced corners, ports, anti-peel keys, water resistant keyboard, sealed touchpad. It's got a non-slip texture. And a fanless design. So all this means that it's going to be a durable device that teachers will be able to use, bring it back and forth to school, in and out of their bag. It's also got a retractable handle, so we aren't required to buy a case for it. It's durable. It's got a retractable handle, so it's got a lot of features that make it a good fit for us, I think. Yeah, it's another neat feature from a student perspective. This is what we'll also add to our student carts, and probably from a teacher too. I thought about some uses for this. Is the webcam that's on the device is rotatable, so it can be rotated to face the back. So it can be used for different purposes. Then to be able to kind of, while you're watching it, be able to film something out. So recording a teacher's lecture or something like that. is possible. So it's a good device, a good fit, and at $199.99 is the best quote we went to. We've gotten to several vendors, and that's the best quote we've gotten per device. That's for that's 4 gigabytes of memory, which is a step up from what we had on the Acer last year. So we think it's a good value. So this is just sort of a summary of what that looks like. So for the year 0 funding, the cost for the Chromebooks and the carts, the cost for the network upgrade, and you can see there potentially 80% funded through E-rate. And then the repair replace budget, those are all sort of capital dollars. We're able to afford that because we've replaced already this year, with the purchase we made this year, we've replaced all our oldest line of desktops. So for next year, we'll all be in the 6000 series HP desktops, and we're not planning to purchase any additional large orders of desktops. So that to give us a chance to get started on this, we feel pretty confident about.
So basically, you're taking, Jim, your budget you used to have to replace desktops and computer labs, and you are now going with Chromebooks.
Correct.
Whoops. So, yeah, any questions?
That's a lot of information, thanks. I'm trying to think what my questions were. Currently, which of our devices are take-home for students?
None. We have a few, except we have a few Chromebooks in our media center at the high school and a few other devices that students can check out. We'd be looking at, as we expand, that's one thing that the action team is going to really have to take a close look at, is what can we do, assuming if we stayed cart-based, or if we, even in the short term, where we're not fully one-to-one either way, could we add devices? I know that I'm going to be purchasing 5 additional Chromebooks for the media center at the high school and 3 for the media center at the middle school that they intend to make available for checkout. There's also some really interesting, in terms of increasing access outside of school, some really interesting articles lately about innovative ways that districts are trying to tackle this problem. They're putting mobile hotspots in school buses. Sometimes they're parking those school buses out in the community near public housing. Things like that, working with community organizations. There's a company called Kajit that provides low-cost filtered internet hotspots that you can then check out to students. So there's a lot of different ways that districts are kind of trying to tackle that issue. So there's a lot of options that we'll want to really be kind of looking at as we think about tackling those kinds of questions.
Thank you. That's interesting about the internet. That was my next question. How could they have access to the internet? Do your figures include upgrading K1 from the iPod Touches to the iPad Minis?
Yes. So the figure there, 196,576 in year 1. You see that for Apple Refresh on the Apple Refresh line. That includes everything we need to. We'd have to replace the carts, at K and 1 because those only fit iPods. We'd replace carts. We'd retrofit our existing carts because they've got the old cables, in grade 2, and the devices no longer use those cables. So, so all of those costs are included. So switching to iPad Minis, upgrading to iPad Airs in grade 2, replacing carts where needed, and retrofitting carts where needed. Includes all.
And we had a discussion on this as well. If we get the E-rate next September, like we think we will, then is it potential that we can shift that refresh to year 0?
Right. So if we end up getting the E-rate, we'd like to do that purchase next year out of capital funds. That gives us a head start, and then we can, we won't know to the fall, so we won't be able to do that order until past that date. But once we do, then we could get those in, get them set up, get everything ready to go so that you can launch, day 1 of the following school year, and probably, and maybe even sooner, depending on, on what that looks like with all the other commitments that we have. So.
And then at one point when you were talking about the steps, you said you implemented something in one elementary. Was that the Lakeview pilot? And how was it that we had those extra devices? Was that planned or?
Well, so we had a budget that we were to use for our Chromebook pilot this year, okay? We ended up saving some money when we did the order after we had initial budget. So we had some money in that. And we also, we actually were trying to budget for the wireless upgrade this year until we learned about the changes to E-rate. So we had money set aside for that. And we weren't going to do that this year because of E-rate, potential to earn that money through E-rate. So we had this additional body of funds that was in that special Chromebook project budget available to us. And through one of the vendors, we learned about a pilot program that's provided a cart, 30 Chromebooks, Chromebook management, wireless printer, wireless network, online staff development for four participants in a 6-week online course, white glove service where they enrolled them for us. So like it's really kind of Cadillac package for basically the cost of what we would have paid just for the devices. So it was a sort of an opportunity that we thought, wow, this landed in our laps, but here's a chance to really sort of explore with some of the funds we have this year to start to kind of try to answer some of these open questions about what's a good fit at elementary. What do we need to do? Do we need to push our keyboarding kind of instruction back? What are we doing to try to meet the standards in literacy that say, for example, by the end of 4th grade, students should be able to type a single page in a single sitting, write a single page in a single sitting, those kinds of things that we're really not addressing adequately right now because of access issues. Does this make a good sense at 3, 4, 5? And so we opened it to any, to the principals to propose grade. We wanted it at 1 grade level. We wanted a close team of teachers that already is used to working together and collaboratively planning together to have access. And so I think the teachers at Lakeview have been really excited about it and have already really done really innovative things. And it was sort of based on some of the things they're already doing. So Mark Nekenicki is in that team, and he's been doing Skype in the classroom this year. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but he's been able to bring in National Park rangers and former NASA astronaut, and does Mystery Skype, which is, they're learning geography in U.S. geography in grade 4, and so this is an activity where the kids are basically playing 20 questions with another class somewhere in the country to guess where they are, and they have to learn how to use the maps. And so really cool things he was already doing. Melinda Telemontes was already having kids create prezzies and online presentations and videos and stuff. So these are teachers that were already kind of innovating. Their pod is right next to the computer lab at Lakeview. So these were ones that were kind of ready, which I thought for this, we chose subject areas, social studies and language arts for our initial pilot, and we had a range of readiness for the teachers. I thought here was an opportunity where we want teachers who are asking for it already, ready for it, at the elementary level, because they can really help us dig in and try to answer some of these tougher questions without maybe some of the barriers of really kind of learning how to just get their feet wet. So that's why.
Thank you. And what happens to those devices next year?
They're going to keep them. So they're going to keep them. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, the Perpich grant that is at Sibley, I think. There's a group of teachers there in the Perpich grant. They're looking to spend, they contacted me this last week, they're going to try to spend the remainder of their grant funding, their grant's ending, they're going to buy a cart of Chromebooks. So we'll end up with carts at both of those buildings for next year. And so, so.
From an equity angle, okay, I would encourage you to try to find carts for the other 2 buildings as well.
Yeah.
If we're going to be expanding it.
Well, and if you look in year 2, I mean, and this is where it's kind of what do you do when, and some of these things kind of just happen, right? Opportunities make themselves available. But in year 2, up at the top there under deployment, it says high school carts to elementary. So what would happen in that year is that when you went 1-to-1 at the high school, the existing carts we'd have there would go to the remaining elementaries. So you'd end up with at least 1 cart in every elementary the year before you had full deployment in the elementaries. So the idea is that we do increase access at elementary wherever the opportunity is available. So so we can make we can make that decision. If that's
keep on thinking through that, because we want to spread the wealth through all the district on these things.
Yes.
And that's where I was intending to go with that, train too, that I do understand the need for a pilot and to use maybe a school that's ready for that, but to still keep in mind that we do want all elementary students to have the same opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, we thank you, and we had excellent applications from 2 other buildings, so. Absolutely, yeah, and you know, partnering with the public library, partnering with community organizations is going to be a critical piece of this, and we actually have opportunities to work with like what is it the what's the foundation?
Oh, yeah, Alberley Education Foundation.
Yeah, Alberley Education Foundation approached us last year, and this was one of the ideas they had about trying to do that. So I think we've got people in the community ready to kind of step forward. To help us answer some of these access issues and questions as we make this transition. And once we get this clarity survey, Bright survey, we'll have a better sense of what does that really look like, access outside of school. We have guesses now, but we don't necessarily have good data that shows us really, like one of the things they told us in Mounds View is that they discovered is that for a lot of their kids, particularly there was one teacher that was running a flipped math classroom, special education in grade 6. So she had a lot of, she had a significant number of students that did not have internet access at home, but they did have a computer at home. So, and so what she ended up doing was putting a lot of her flipped classroom materials on USB drives that then they could access from home. To complete a lot of their work, and then also she made time during the day during lunch. She'd have people be able to come in and work during their lunch, and so they worked to try to make that happen. And so I don't think a one-size-fits-all solution is going to work. We've got to look for what are the best solutions to really meet the needs as we see them and as we discover them on the ground.
Gabe, have you run into this? Have you had the opportunity to work with the Chromebooks at the high school, or have friends that have and made comments?
Is this on? Oh, no, it is. Okay, my little brother has worked with the Chromebooks. He goes to Lakeview and he's in 4th grade, and he says it's the teachers work with them, and he says it's really helpful. He knows more to do on a computer than I do. I don't know technology. I don't like technology that much. I avoid it. All that is that he'll come home and do stuff on our computer. I'm like, what are you doing? And I have not, some of the younger kids in our school have, but the seniors, the only thing that we do in technology is Schoology, that CSI classes, well, 2 classes I have in CSI classes do Schoology. That's about all I know how to do. So I haven't encountered it yet as a senior.
And the other thing I'd like to just commend both Kenneth and Jim. You were not reading about Alberley area schools in the MSB news clippings for buying 3,500 iPad devices and distributing to the students, and let's just go. So they have taken a very comprehensive, methodical approach on how we can grow this thing and be successful not only for our students, but our staff members and everybody in the district. And this survey that they're talking about, I think that's going to be very beneficial for us as well. And we're trying to do this within the budget we have. We are not, we're not going crazy on these things, but we're trying to meet the needs of our students as they evolve over time.
Yes? Wow. Will do. Thank you, Mark. The last item on our agenda is board compensation, and this is something that we had asked to continue to have discussions on and see what your thoughts are. You've had a couple of weeks to, or I should say probably a month to absorb this, so I'm just curious on each individual person's perspective on it. Again, I know this is always a hard conversation to have. You know, I guess I have to ask the question, are you interested in exploring this further? And if so, what direction would you like to go? You know, when would you like a decision to be made, and when would you like that to be effective? I guess those are some of the things that we can discuss.
I will. Yes, I believe that this is something that we need to discuss. I actually missed the last meeting, but I did, you know, look at some of the stuff that we talked about. I don't like talking about it without Mark and Dave here. I think we should all be talking about it together. I think we do need to move forward, and I think the recommendation, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of had talked about, and I think in the meeting we talked about maybe phasing it in instead of all of a sudden jumping into it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, based upon what Governor Dayton just went through when he gave all of his commissioners raises,
Right.
I think if you phased it over a period of time.
Mm-hmm. I, of course, am not for that because I might not be here, and, you know, I think we are I mean, I know we don't do this for the money, but we are solely undercompensated. And so, I mean, for, like, Jill, you've been on the board for how many years? Bill, I know you have too. It's like, I know we'd get a lot of criticism if we just jumped into it, but, I mean, I think it's another option to look at. But, again, I think that we should have everyone here to talk about it more. Anyone else's opinion? And I have to go.
I'd be interested also in talking more about it. I haven't looked at the numbers anymore since our last meeting, but I said it, not at the last meeting, but when we last discussed it, I would like to see an additional amount for the chair because it's so time intensive. It doesn't matter to me whether we phase it in or not. I mean, if we compare it to other elected officials in our area, it's not even, it still wouldn't come anywhere close to what anyone else gets. And like Linda said, we don't do it for the money, but it would make sense to come into alignment with what some other districts are doing around the area.
I agree with both what Linda and Jill have said. I also think, Bill, you made really good points when we talked about this at the prior meeting, that to hopefully cast the net, I guess, a little wider, and get interest from community members in running. I think it's a great point that not everyone has flexibility in their schedules, and they may need to use vacation or PTO. And again, like you've all said, we certainly don't run for school board for the money, but that could be a real deterrent for people who may think about running, that financially it's becomes a burden instead of something that looks attractive if they're interested. So I too think that we should move ahead and looking with it. I you know, I certainly could go with either phasing and get in or doing it all at once. I almost would prefer to just do it at one time, because then we get the criticism over in one fell swoop. And take our lashings at once. But I definitely think it's appropriate. I also feel it's important the chair get additional, and kind of in looking at the amounts that were shared with us, it seems like kind of an average is 3,600 annually. So that seems appropriate, and, but I agree. I think it's been a very long time, and we need to encourage members of our community to explore thinking about running.
So my suggestion, or what I'm hearing, is we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting, which is May 18th, with potential action on it at that meeting. Okay, real good. Is there anything else to come before the board? Seeing none, we're adjourned.